Hey everyone, it's Ozzy Mori here, your education station. Today we have Laura Lebowski, who has been in the special education field for more than 20 years, uh, teaching in Indian Springs and for the Clark County School District. Laura, thank you so much for being with us. How are you?
Thank you for having me. Doing
Of
very well,
course.
thank you.
How's your day going so far? Good? Busy?
So good. Yeah, we just got back from vacation, so we're good.
Now you're a mother of how many kiddos?
Two.
Two kids. Okay, so how long have you been teaching now in Indian Springs? Or you said you teach over the summer.
Yeah, so I spent 21 years in Clark County at various, mostly middle schools. I did 2 years at Legacy High School as well. 3 of those summers I taught ESY, which is called Extended School Year. It's for the special education kiddos. And I taught 3 summers at here in Indian Springs.
Indian Springs. Talk to me about the community.
Oh,
How's Indian Springs?
I love living out here. It is very quiet. The people are, really helpful, very nice. And the community itself is growing, and I think that's what um, Vegas just doesn't understand is that we are growing and we are getting bigger.
Right, and just for people that are joining us right now, Indian Springs is about 40 miles north of Las Vegas or so. So, Laura, talk to me about some of the unique challenges and opportunities you faced during your time at Indian Springs teaching there.
So with it just being for a month, for the ESY program, there wasn't too many difficult challenges other than the fact that a lot of the kids sometimes didn't show up, and which was really important for the special ed kids because they need that time and that routine to keep going. And some of them, really need to be in school because they lose their skills throughout the summer. At the time, they were still doing the summer acceleration as well. And so what happened is a lot of the parents, I don't know if it just wasn't explained properly or whatever, but a lot of the parents were sending their kids to the summer acceleration instead of the ESY because they were at 2 different times. Like summer acceleration was mostly in June, and then at the end of June into July is when ESY would start. So they wanted to give their kids a break, which is fine, but the ESY program was probably the better choice. I just, like I said, I don't know if it just wasn't explained correctly to those parents or not.
Now, can you elaborate a little bit more ESY, the program, and why it's so critical for students to
Absolutely.
attend?
I loved teaching ESY. Unfortunately, I can't do it now because I'm not with Clark County anymore. But it was always one of my favorite times a year to do teaching because ESY, it stands for Extended School Year. And again, it's offered to the kids with IEPs and special needs. And what we do there is we work on skills that are already been taught. So we're not necessarily teaching anything new, we're reinforcing the skills that they already have.
And then why is this program so critical?
It's really critical because a lot of our students kind of have a backslide throughout the summer. Typical kids will have a backslide anyway, but they kind of recover pretty quickly once school starts. But with the special education students, sometimes it takes them even longer, or sometimes they don't recover those skills at all. So the more they have that education, the better they'll do.
Understood. What are some of the major educational needs currently facing Indian Springs schools, in your opinion?
Um, I think one thing that really stands out to me is the lack of like CTE programs. Our kids don't have access to programs that kids in Vegas and Henderson do. For example, like we don't have a wood shop, or we don't have a culinary, or we don't have an auto shop. Like just, things like that that kids might want to go into an actual career with. We don't have those programs out here. And I know that a lot of that has to do with finding teachers that are willing to come out here. But my biggest thing is if you look at Las Vegas just kind of as a whole, what I want teachers to understand is don't be afraid of Indian Springs because it's really no different than being hired out in Henderson. Like it's just the opposite direction, really. Um, we are about, I would say maybe 25-minute drive from Sky Canyon. So Centennial Hills teachers, if you're looking for a different school, it's all freeway. And we need teachers that can bring programs out here for the kids because that's one of the things that they don't get exposed to versus in town.
Right.
Yet other people will be like, well, I'll spend 40 minutes and go teach in Henderson. Well, you can come out here.
Spend those 40 minutes to an hour teaching over there.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
you said the word afraid. Why do you think some educators are afraid to teach at Indian Springs?
I think they look at the drive and they think, oh, if there's nothing out there, well, granted, currently we do have, the Terribles gas station, we have our Bob's Big Boy, we have our Family Dollar. Yes, we are definitely a small community and we are definitely lacking in services. Obviously, that's, a whole other conversation. But the fact of the matter is that the drive itself is, I mean, it's easy. It's all freeway. We are right across from Creech Air Force Base. So the people that work there do it every day. There's people that commute from Vegas to go to Creech Air Force Base, and they don't have a problem with it. It's 2 lanes each direction. So, and the reason I point that out is because when I travel to Nye County every day, we go down to 1 lane on each side. And I know that, myself included, gets a little, scary to drive 1 lane. But we don't have that from Vegas to Indian Springs.
So, what about you? What made you want to teach out in Indian Springs? Maybe if you share your story, other educators will be motivated.
Well, I wanted to be definitely closer to home, especially in the summer and when we first moved out here. I will even admit when we looked into buying a house out here, I was like, wow, oh my God, that drive. But it really was not that bad. Um, and I had toured the school when we first moved out here so that I can see what it was like. And I enjoyed the atmosphere. Um, the teachers, seem, or actually, because when I first came out here, I met the counselor, and
Hmm.
she was just amazing, and showed me all the good things about Indian Springs as we were doing our tour and everything, and so it just seemed like a smaller, and that's actually another good thing too for teachers to keep in mind is the smaller class sizes because we are rural and small. So if you're looking for a smaller class size, that's also a benefit.
Absolutely. I always say this small communities are usually the best.
Hmm.
Close together, united, in that rural setting of Indian Springs, talk to me about the curriculum and teaching methods used, especially by you in your during your time there.
Um, so with the teaching methods, we like I said, we try to keep things consistent to what they do during the school year. So I would go through their IEPs and see what was used previously, things that worked, things that didn't. I think being um, such a small environment too helps with the consistency of teaching. And with having my kids, my own children, in some of the other teachers' classes, I was able to kind of reach out to them and be like, hey, you had so and so, what did you do with them? And so I was able to kind of go based off of that.
Now, let's go back and talk about some of the major educational needs. when it comes to special education there out in Indian Springs?
Um, I think probably one of the biggest needs would be just, services and supplies and, making sure that the gen ed teachers are all educated about IEPs, how to follow them, learning what are accommodations and how to accommodate students. And I don't necessarily think it doesn't have to be specific to Indian Springs. I'm sure there are parents out here that, would say that it is specific. But just being in the special ed field, I have worked with gen ed teachers don't, that they just don't have the knowledge of the IEPs and what they're supposed to do. And so following those IEPs and the accommodations and finding out, that's why they call it individualized education plan, because it's supposed to be individualized for each kid, and what works for one kid is not going to work for everybody.
Let's talk about now some of the common misconceptions about education in Indian Springs and what you would like to clarify. What do you want the public to know? I know you mentioned a little bit at the top of the start of this podcast.
So we do exist out here. We are rural, but we've been to other rural schools in Clark County. We had track meets up in what's it, Virgin Valley up there, and Moapa, Sandy Valley. Their facilities are beautiful out there. And yet, for some reason, we're still sitting with, our old school. They say that they're going to give us a new one, but then that got put on the back burner again. Um, and it's like, you do good for other rural schools, but what about us?
So you feel left out.
Absolutely. They came out here to do some meetings and they presented us with plans for the new school. And part of those plans were eliminating our theater, basically. They were taking out our Thunderdome, which is our gym. And we were kind of under the impression that the Thunderdome was basically fine, or if you were going to do that, maybe we could donate it back to the community and we can use it as a community center or something like that. And then part of their plans was also to have less classrooms than what we have out here now. So we were all kind of like, and then, I mean, even something as small as like our color scheme was off. You know what I mean? Like they didn't even pick the right colors for our schools. And we're like, and then when they did come back, they were like, "Oh, see, we have the right colors now." We're like, "Okay, but that's the colors. What about our theater kids? And how come they don't have a place?" They wanted to do kind of like a multi-purpose room, like with elementary students where they have like the stage or whatever. Um, and we tried to tell them, look, you have theater tech that is building sets. They've got, construction equipment, nails, all this and that, and you want to just do like a breakaway wall, and it seemed really unfair to our theater kids. And then not only that, but if you take away all the spaces that we have, the sports teams had nowhere to practice, or they would be practicing on top of each other. So it's like, yeah, you're building us this nice, beautiful school, but it's smaller and our community is growing. So none of it made any sense. And then recently they kind of put it on the back burner now. We've been pushed to the side because they said they don't, I think it was because they said they didn't have enough money or something like that. And in my eyes, I'm like, well, things are still going to get more expensive. You're telling us it's too expensive to build it now. What's it going to be when you do decide to build it? It's going to be even more expensive. So, and they were only going to give us like one gym for, because remember, we have elementary, middle, and high school out here. It's all basically one school.
Everything that you mentioned, do you believe that may be one of the reasons why educators out here in Las Vegas may be hesitant to go out there? Because, educators talk amongst each other as well, word of mouth. I believe in that.
Yeah, absolutely. We, you know, as much as I like to say the positives, of what we have, there are issues. And, being an old school is one of them. I know that there's also air conditioning issues, which, does kind of go across valley-wide, I will say that. But
Right.
my own children were kind of telling me that, they're always hearing the people on the roof, they're trying to study and do whatever, and all they hear is clonk, 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 and it's like every other, like at least once or twice a week. Um, I can't necessarily verify, but that's according to my own children. So,
Your own children, right.
uh,
What advice would you give to someone considering to teach out at Indian Springs? It's a
I,
wonderful community.
it is, and I will say that our kids out here really need you. If don't we're never going to get better if we don't have people that are willing to take a chance to come out here and teach. It is a wonderful community. The kids are amazing. They're very involved in whatever sports we do have out here. Um, like I said, our theater program is amazing. If anybody from town ever wants to take the drive out to come see a show, our kids are so amazing.
Oh, I would love to go visit. It sounds
Yeah,
wonderful.
it is.
Eh,
But like
How
I,
have you, oh, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
No, how have you been able to address the needs of students with disabilities
Um, Me personally or the school?
in your class?
Oh,
In
okay.
your class, or I know you're also part. Let me start all over with that question again. Um,
Yeah, because I don't teach there during the year, so it's kind of
it's kind
it's
of, yeah, okay. So you are have a huge voice on social media. I see that you're part of, or you are an admin on all Indian Springs, correct?
all
How
things.
do you, all things Indian Springs, how do you advocate for your community and especially for special education and needs out in Indian Springs?
Um, so social media has actually and I don't know if the school would necessarily agree, but social media has kind of been the voice of our community because when the play was threatened to be shut down around wintertime, the sub that we had, there was some issues, and basically they were saying that the kids were just not going to have the play, and
What
so
play are you talking about? During theater
um,
or?
yeah, for the theater, we had a there was they were going to do a winter play, and they were basically going to cancel it. And my daughter being in theater was, and her friends were obviously very upset with that. So I just asked the question on our page, and I says, "Hey, did anybody hear about this? Like, what's going on?" And then, once people started chiming in, the assistant principal, who was amazing, getting it back up and running, she worked with my daughter, she's ninth grade at the time, she's going into 10th. And basically, her and one of the other students like wrote their own play, they produced it. Um, my daughter was the director of it. And so they were able to actually put on a play even for one night.
Got it. So this happened at the high school, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was the assistant principal that helped out a lot with that was Miss Cervantes.
Now, you being a mother,
Yes.
what role do you play in the education system at Indian Springs? I know you're also an educator. What else do you do?
I mean, I just try to stay as involved with the kids and what they do, my kids, obviously, and what they do as possible. The volleyball team, we just had a like a fundraiser. They were selling the popcorn and stuff. So, we're constantly doing fundraising out here for the schools, or yeah, for all three schools, um, because we don't have a lot of the funding for uniforms and for um, just basic need, like sending the kids to like state or track or things like that. I know there was some budget issues with track this year. um, so yeah, the social media has definitely helped out a lot. But like I said, sometimes the school probably doesn't think so because we kind of get on there and we're like, that's the only way that we get heard sometimes.
That's the only way where you feel like your voice matters
Yes.
and you will be heard.
Yeah, because if we don't bring it up on social media, it kind of gets buried a little bit.
How do you balance, being a mother and an educator and making sure you have that understanding on social media? It can be kind of tricky. It could be difficult sometimes to navigate.
It is, and I always, when we go to open houses and stuff, I always try and
Mm-hmm.
like when I introduce myself to my children's teachers, I always tell them like, "Hey, I'm an educator too. I get it. Like, we're kind of in this together." But I also tell them like, "Look, I try not to be like that parent either because I know how it is." But unfortunately, when something isn't right, you kind of have to be squeaky. Because if you're not, then it's not going to get taken care of.
What are some of the advantages working in a close knit community?
You get to know everybody and everybody knows you. I don't think my own children would agree, but like if they're out in the neighborhood, I kind of know that that like if they do something that they shouldn't be, I'm going to know about it. And so I love that concept of the community and the family. And it's like we can't, just as a parent in general, any parent, you can't discipline your kid if you don't know what they're doing. And you can't be with them when they're teenagers 100% of the time.
Right.
So, as a small community, if somebody were to come to me and say, hey, we saw so and so doing this, but even as a teacher, if I have a good relationship with a student, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, do I need to talk to your mom? And they're like, no, no.
Because I know her.
Yeah, exactly. And I always tell people if and I have I know I'm their mom, but I mean, I really do have really good kids, for the most part. But I always tell them if you see them doing something, please let me know.
That's always good to have that support,
Yeah,
right? And
it's
people you can
parenting.
count on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How can the broader community support the educational mission of Indian Springs schools?
I think part of it is, coming out here and seeing what kind of a community we are and not just thinking that we're some, stop in between here and Beatty or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
um, you know, and maybe that's kind of on us to maybe try and put out more on social media, I guess, or whatever. But like if we are doing fundraisers or if we do have, like a theater production or whatever, to kind of like advertise a little bit more about what's going on with our schools.
What about after school programs?
We do have some. Most of them are sports. Um, To be honest, I'm not really sure about how many like after school, like other than sports. I'm sure there are. There's got to be a few clubs or whatever, but
What
uh,
about the after school programs or programs available, activities for children with disabilities, special needs?
I mean, like I said, other than sports, there's really not much out here for them to do. I mean, we have like we do have our own community center, but I mean. I don't think that they necessarily have any like programs available. Like we do have a library out here, so the librarian there is fabulous, and she works with all the kids and stuff. So um,
There's always that one person, right?
yeah, it's amazing. They're all amazing there at the library, and they're part of Clark County Library District.
Right. They're good. They're good. Clark County Library District, good.
Yes.
Um, in special education, what professional developments are available for educators in Indian Springs?
They have access to all of the what do they call it? The PDs that are advertised through RPDP and everything. So all they would have to do is just sign up for any of those, and they would probably have to go into town to do the trainings and stuff. But
Is that what you had to do?
um, well, we do have so they do have yeah, I mean pretty much. If you want to take any further professional development, you go through the RPDP program. And then there's classes there that you can take, and they just kind of go by that.
Got it. Now, you as an educator, what are some innovative teaching methods that you use in your class?
Well, one of the things that I try and do initially is to build a good rapport with my students. And a lot of times, like you'll hear me even correcting myself because I just call them my kids. You guys, like, they're all my kids. Once you're one of my kids, you're always my kid. It's kind of like being their parent. I have to be firm with them, but I'm also understanding of their individual needs. So that's definitely where I try to prioritize things, is to build that relationship with them first of all. And then we can get down to the teaching and the strategies, and because if they don't want to work with you, you're not going to get anything done.
It's creating that trust,
Mhm.
that bond, right?
Absolutely.
Children read that and feel that.
Hmm. And it's not always going to start out that way. I mean, we're all human. I've had rough starts with kids before. And once I was able to kind of delve into their background a little bit and find out like kind of different things, we're able to start over, and I think that's one of the bigger things too with kids is like, just because you don't get off on the right foot with your teacher, like, it's okay, like every day is a new day. And I always tell my kids that all the time. It's like, hey, we had a bad day today, but I'm not one of those teachers that's going to hold it over your head either. You can come back tomorrow and we're going to have a new day and it's going to be good.
Right. You just move on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Move on and make the best out of it,
Because
right?
a lot of my students, because they are just academically lower, automatically will come in with behavior problems because they want to try and cover it up, or they think, like, oh, I can't do this anyway, so let me be a cut up or whatever, or oh, everybody seems to think that I can't read or I can't do math, so, why should I even try? And I hate that for those kids. And it's like, I always just want to, just give them a hug and just be like, it's fine, like, let's start with what you can do, and we're gonna move forward from there.
Right. I love that mindset. Just move forward, right?
Yeah,
That's all you can do.
yeah.
Now, at the start of this interview, you mentioned there are not enough CTE programs.
No,
In your opinion,
no, there's like
Indian
none out here.
Springs, none. Oh, how can these programs enhance the educational experience for these students?
I mean, it would give some of them a purpose. Like, it's hard enough trying to figure out as a kid what you want to do in life. But when you don't have access to different life skills, like we don't even have a personal finance class out here, Like, so how are we supposed to teach our kids about money and, things like that when that doesn't even exist? There's so many talented kids out here that could probably build engines and things like that, and we don't have an auto shop. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Kids that might want to go into teaching as a profession or go into childcare, and we don't have an early childhood program. Um, any of that stuff. We don't
And that would be a huge benefit.
Absolutely. We don't have and I know not all the schools have this either, but I know that like we don't have ROTC. We're right across from an Air Force base. We have a big military um, families and presence out here. You would think that we would try and somehow get these programs out here.
So, how do these students benefit from the proximity to Creech Air Force Base?
I know that we've had sometimes the soldiers have come over and done like presentations and stuff like that for them.
Hmm.
They get to, what's kind of cool is, and I'm at school teaching during the day, so I kind of miss it. But the Thunderbirds, when they come out here and they kind of practice and everything,
Yeah, they're the
the
best.
kids get to go outside and watch the Thunderbirds. So Creech has definitely been beneficial to our community as well.
Absolutely. I bet that's exciting for the kids too
Oh yeah,
to
they
see
love
that.
that.
Um, I'm really interested to know how do or what resources, support systems are available for educators like yourself transitioning from special education to now general education.
Um, that's definitely a good question. Um, so for me going from special ed to general ed, I actually feel like I'm bringing the knowledge with me because
Hmm.
I have co-taught in the past. So the curriculum is not the issue for me. It would be classroom management, handling IEPs, knowing about them, and things like that. So for me, that part of it, I feel pretty confident with. And so I worry a little bit more about the curriculum and things like that. But again, like I said, there's a lot of teachers that don't understand IEPs. They don't understand accommodations. They don't understand how to implement them.
Hmm.
And
Or kids with behavioral situations.
yeah, they don't understand how to de-escalate. Um, and like I said, we are all human.
Hmm.
So, I mean, situations can go one way or the other, but I think with more training, hopefully CCSD can get more training, maybe bring the training out to Indian Springs, or like I said, you guys can send all the trainings out to Henderson, but you won't train the teachers out here. Um, like we always have to go into town. So maybe if they start having a training or two out here as the host school, other teachers will have to make the trek out here and they'll maybe start seeing like, hey, it's not that bad. Like this, we're kind of like that diamond in the rough kind of thing, like where you're just like, it's shiny, but it's kind of, it's a hidden gem. And we just need people out here that are willing to put in the time and the dedication.
And the love.
Absolutely. And I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of do want to give a shout out to our band teacher as well, because we do have a fabulous band.
Hmm.
His name is Mr. Cooney, and he does so much good things with the band. They go out to UNLV to do the little concerts that they have every year with all the schools when they go there. So our theater, our band, like we just have amazing things out here, but we, and I shout him out because I know he does come from Vegas every day. And so,
Wow, he makes the drive.
yes, he does.
Wow. Dedication there. I love
Yes,
that.
and he's amazing with our kids. And so I just feel like, if he can do that and he's so dedicated, I know that there's other teachers in Vegas that are going to do the same thing out here. And we need you. So please don't be afraid to come out here, be that person that's like, hey, oh, you guys don't have an auto program out there. You know what? Let me start that out there for you. Like let me be the spark that gets that going.
You guys need people to take initiative
Yes,
and just make the move.
just do
If
it.
if you don't mind me asking, and whatever you're comfortable with talking about, why did you transition from special education when, there's such a need right now for teachers in special education to general education?
I do, my heart is in special education. I will 100% always say that. Um, After 20 somewhat years, you sometimes do need a change. I don't want to say I'm burned out because I'm not. Like I said, I love special ed. Um, but I think where my brain is that I can do more for special ed being in the gen ed room as a gen ed teacher. Because as the co-teacher, I would, so like when you're in a co-teach setting, it's you and a gen ed teacher.
Okay.
And depending on how you guys kind of work it out, usually the gen ed teacher takes the lead and we're kind of, helping and teaching, supplementary teaching when we can. Um, but a lot of times we get the special ed kids that are in that class, which is fine. But I always feel like like they're getting pointed out in a way. Like if I'm always pulling them to do a small group or read to them or do whatever, they're going to start to feel like, oh my gosh, well, everybody knows I'm in sped because I'm with the special ed teacher. And I don't want that for my classroom. So as a gen ed teacher, I feel like I can bring my knowledge into the gen ed classroom now and not make those kids feel so separated. Like we can all be one class.
I
And
see. So that was your reason.
yeah, absolutely. Like I want to actually bring my special ed skills into the gen ed classroom and make it better for all the kids there. Because, just because some of the kids are gen ed doesn't mean that they don't have issues either. Maybe they're just not identified.
Does that happen
So,
often?
yes. Oh yeah. Again,
Are
it's
you
it's part of the squeaky wheel thing. The parent that pushes and pushes for testing is the one that gets it. And the ones that are just kind of like you are always going to have kids that fall through the cracks. And for my gen ed classroom, I'm trying not to have that. I don't want kids to fall through the cracks, so I want to catch them while supporting my higher kids, of course. But we can kind of utilize that, and like everybody can come and work together and help each other out.
for the upcoming school year, how will you address the diverse needs of your students? I know you mentioned that you don't want students to fall through the cracks.
No. I just, I want to do things with them that they're going to take into the real world as well. I can read all the stories with them and we can do all the grammar in the world, but how is that going to help you in the real world? And so I want to have them get a sense of like, we all did that in high school and whatever, especially in math, we were like, well, when am I ever going to use this? So
I think
I
we all
kind
said
of,
that at one point.
absolutely. So I kind of want to be that, like, I want to be the answer to that question. Okay. Like if I'm teaching you something, there's a reason. And how are we going to use that in our real lives?
Thank you for sharing that. We're almost done here, but I want to know some key factors that contribute to the uniqueness of Indian Spring schools.
Like I said, we're all, it is very close knit. Some of the families have been out here for generations. Um, and like I said, we our the sports, programs that we do have, um, they are very supportive of each other. So it's not like they're competing with each other on the team. Like if there's one person on the team that's, not doing as good or whatever, the other kids will come out and support them as well, cheer them on, kind of help them get better at what they're doing. So I feel like this community is like we're here, we want to be supportive of each other, but like I said, sometimes we just kind of get bypassed and forgotten.
Right. And that's why we're here talking today. So that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
What about
no,
the
hopefully.
what about the school culture?
This for the most part, it's my sorry.
It's okay.
For the
It's all
most
right.
part, for the most part, my own children, they enjoy going there. They have lots of friends. They're involved in sports. Well, my daughter, she's in the drama, she's in the band, she does volleyball. She did track this spring. My son is in middle school, and he did say that he did wish that there was more middle school sports because at this time there's only basketball. But he'll be going to high school, and I know that they've been eyeing him for the football team. So
Yay.
he's my 13-year-old who's like 6 feet tall. So
Wow.
yeah, so they definitely want him.
He's going to be a star.
Yes. But they tell me that, like it just obviously there's issues. There's been bullying issues out here that have been discussed on social media at some times. I know there are some parents that have gone through different things with, the school, whether it was accommodations not being met or, like I said, bullying issues. So, speaking on behalf of my own kids, obviously, but I think overall, in general, I think that the environment is good. I always said if I had a choice of sending the kids to a Vegas school or to keep them in Indian Springs, even though we don't have programs, I'm keeping them in Indian Springs because the drama, I mean, I've taught in a high school out in Vegas, the drama, the fighting, the substances, you know? And it's not to say that it doesn't happen out here, but it is not as prevalent as it is out there. And so I think any teacher that wants a change of pace should definitely think about coming out here.
And just one last question, I make it short. How do you encourage student leadership and also with educators, your fellow colleagues?
As far as student leadership, I just like, I'll tell them, don't be so scared to do things. Our kids nowadays just seem very timid and very shy about stepping out and doing. And I'm not saying go out there and be like, if that's not your personality, but don't be afraid to try new things. Like if you're going to try something, then at least try it, commit to it. And then when it's over, you don't have to do it again, but at least commit to it. And as
What
far
about to your
as
fellow colleagues?
yeah, I was gonna say, as far as the colleagues, I would just tell them, like, don't be afraid to learn more. There's always more to learn. Don't be stuck in your teaching rut. And I say that even to myself. 23 years of teaching total, it's very easy to be like, well, I do this every year. And but guess what? The kids change every year. The kids that I taught 20 years ago are not the same kids that I'm going to be teaching this year. And so as an educator, you have to adapt. And if you're not willing to, then you're going to have issues.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. And if you guys are just joining us right now, we just interviewed Laura Lebowski with more than 20 years in special education and now transitioning to general education. This
Yes.
is your education station. See ya.